thank you for coming. My name is Brian Marcus. I'm the Global Director of the eBay Partner Network. We are an advertiser and a network. We are a network that drives traffic to eBay. Quick background on me is I've been in the industry roughly 9 years, starting on the advertiser side, over to the network side, and now I work with a whole lot of publishers. So I feel like I have some perspectives that I can share with you today. The theme is nautical, because I feel like the world we live in is a constantly shifting landscape. And today, as sort of the captain of the ship, I have to find all sorts of ways to navigate these waters. And these are waters that I've experienced both being at eBay for the last little over a year now, and waters that have shifted many years in the past. And hopefully we'll be able to talk a lot about how the advertiser views the world, how the network views the world, help our publishers think about how to work with advertisers and some of the things that are going to be emerging in the times to come. So without further ado, a little bit about today. I'm going to tell you something that you probably know a lot about. You guys are in the affiliate world, but I'll tell you a little bit about what I know about affiliate marketing today. I want to look at opportunities to welcome these shifting tides and shifty waters and help you understand how to weather the change of advertisers and networks, because there's a whole bunch of changes coming. And I want to talk a lot about finding true north. I have a picture up here of a buoy, and I think about a buoy all the time as sort of my stabling force when I'm out there and trying to figure out where do I go in these crazy times when, you know, all sorts of things with anything from the way advertisers work to policies to different things that Google does. I mean, you've got all sorts of crazy things going on. And so you got to think about your buoy. And I'll tell you a little bit about what my buoy is and how I sort of center myself around that buoy in finding my true north. So affiliate marketing today, one of the more interesting things that's going on, and I think this is something that's been coming for a long time, is that you're finally seeing advertisers really focusing on the customer. We've talked about the customer probably for years and years, and publishers think about the customer a whole lot, but advertisers are really, in particular, focusing on the customers, the consumers today, and thinking about how we meet those customers where they are. Well, that implies that as our focus on customers increases, our partners that we work with have to also help us focus on that customer, think about growth, and think about where to find opportunities for growth. So our affiliates are working with advertisers in a different way today. And it's a really positive thing. And I hope that as we find technology increasing rapidly and the ability to share more information, we're going to find that our affiliates will become a whole lot closer to us. Our publishers will become our partners. And we'll be able to work together to sort of find how we drive growth together. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So the stat that I'm sure you're probably seen many, many times before is that by 2016, this is going to be a $4.5 billion business. I have no doubt it's going to reach that. In fact, I tend to believe that we're going to see an acceleration of growth based on all sorts of great things happening with new tracking technologies and new entrants into this marketplace. But in the North American world, $4.5 billion is what Forrester predicts. And it's double that when you look globally. And we do look globally as eBay. We have a global program, and we think about things in a global manner. And the trends that our advertisers are starting to capitalize on are trends that don't always feel great for publishers. In fact, I'd say almost any change doesn't feel good for anybody. And when I think about the changes that we're going through as eBay, and I think about the changes our publishers are going through, change is not easy, but it's really an opportunity, and it's something that I'm hoping our publishers capitalize on as we think about the next phase of eBay. It's important to adapt. So how do you adapt to eBay? And I'll use eBay as an example. We could talk about other advertisers, talk about other programs, but this is just something I'm so steeped in right now that I can give you a little insight on how we work. In our world, we've got actually some complications, right? We've got two customers. We think about our consumers sort of relentlessly. We think about our buyers. As an affiliate program, we're driving traffic to our sellers so that people can buy. So you got to think about all the steps required to make sure that when affiliate publishers are out there trying to think about how to drive value into the eBay world, it's thinking about both our sellers and our buyers. And it's, in fact, a very virtuous cycle, because when you think about buyers, many of our buyers become sellers and vice versa. So there's a very virtuous sort of impact on being able to drive buyers who become sellers. So that's one thing to think about. We think about that a lot. We have a pretty deep understanding of our customers. We have a very, very deep understanding of our customers. And many of the realities of sort of data marts and data warehouses and data mining are starting to come to fruition, helping us form archetypes of customers that buy and their buying behavior. So one of the most important things in our ecosystem is that we get a really good handle on our consumers. But the other piece of this ecosystem is our publishers, something I feel very strongly about, and I'm a big advocate of within the walls of eBay, is that our publishers have a very good understanding of our customers. And that's why we like working with publishers, because if there's any group of people that know about online marketing, internet marketing, it's our affiliates. And I make sure that that point is abundantly clear when I think about that internally. And what publishers often do is they understand maybe our buyers sometimes better than we do. So part of the goal here is to make sure that we help our publishers grow. And we help our publishers grow helps us grow. And that's thinking about the tools, the data, the technologies that are required to help publishers help us. You know, one of the things I say a lot at eBay is that the customer is not our customer. It's not our publisher's customer. It's our collective customer. We've got to think about how to work together to drive new transactions at eBay. So when I talked about the buoy, I think about our true north, what our navigation, our compasses tell us. It does start with the customer. And when we think about our strategy at eBay, it probably looks like some other retailers or some other strategies that you've seen, but we're pretty relentless about this strategy and how we're implementing it. In particular, our goal is to make sure that our buyers can shop the way they want to shop, anywhere, anytime, on any device, anywhere seamlessly, making it a very frictionless environment with great service and making sure that our consumers feel very much a part of that process. So what we want to do with our consumers is inspire them. We want to have experiences when they come to eBay to be able to make them feel a part of the community and to want to participate in the community. We clearly want them to purchase. We want them to buy. If they're going to buy something somewhere, we want them to come to a place like eBay to buy. We want to help make their decisions easier, help them figure out what they want to buy and why. And then we want to help our sellers sell. So we're a marketplace, and this is really the way our vision works at eBay. And some of the trends that we're seeing and things that we're capitalizing on as a company include things like personalization. What you're going to start to see from eBay is a whole lot more personalization. I think you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it on every site. Every site is becoming more social. It's the way to go. It's how we're going to survive in this new environment. So we got to think about ways, regardless of what advertiser you're at, as a publisher, how the experience is, how you can help that experience of personalization as you drop customers off from your site to our site, how those sites come together. We also are thinking very, very seriously about more global programs. We have currently 13 programs that exist today and many more informal types of programs around the world. We bring customers together through global buying hubs. So that's ways that people in other countries can buy access inventory at eBay. And so that's an implication on our publishers. As they think about how to expand, how can they start to think about the inventory around the world, bring products to our consumers from anywhere, anytime, any place? Mobile. Big, big priority for eBay, a big priority for any of our advertisers. When I think about what's important about mobile, it's making sure that our publishers have the right tracking technologies, the right ability to get creative from us, be able to drive transactions from a mobile website to our website, a mobile app to our app, and vice versa, and all the permutations within. We have a long way to go as advertisers. Not every advertiser has tracking completely installed properly, and everybody is struggling with trying to figure out how to make sure we attribute sales properly to affiliates. I think we're at a point where this is actually going to start to really happen at a rapid pace. And I think advertisers like eBay and others are really getting their act together and making sure that as publishers start to send traffic, that we're making sure that they get credit for that traffic and helping to optimize that traffic. We have also a whole bunch of new players in the mix on the tracking technology side. I think about companies like Impact Radius, Performance Horizon, companies like Has Offers, where they are starting to enable mobile tracking in a way that hasn't existed before. That's really driving some of the acceleration and adoption of this media. Ease of use is something that I'd say as an advertiser and as a network we're pretty relentlessly focused on now. Part of it is getting through some very foundational parts of working with publishers, making sure that publishers can get what they want when they want to, and be able to send consumers to places that they need to go. But it doesn't happen overnight. And I'd say it's probably true of any advertiser today. Tracking the customer journey from your site, publisher site, to the advertiser site, and making sure that there's soft landing and there's landing pages that work and the best landing pages to optimize against. So ease of use is a big focus of advertisers because it's important to consumers. So as we think about journeying beyond our borders, you think about going cross-border, I want to emphasize that advertisers now, while they've probably spent the last decade or so, maybe more, collecting information on consumers, they're really starting to act on that information now. And as I said, with some of these platforms that are coming about, it makes getting that information a whole lot easier, and it makes taking action on that data a whole lot better. So when I think about one of the most important things advertisers have to be thinking about when they provide this wealth of information to publishers is how actionable is this data. It's great to provide them with a sea worth of data, but you can't boil the ocean all the time without the tools, right? I know, I'm making a lot of analogies. I'm hoping I can get somebody to smile on these puns, but when I think about boiling the ocean, actually, I think about eBay in particular, and I think about the fact that, man, there is a lot of data to be had. It doesn't help to just provide the data. It helps to provide things like APIs and front-end tools, and actually just opening up the parts of your business to help publishers figure out how they want to look at data as they think about your world. When I think about cross-border, there's just a whole level of complication and of complexity when it comes to reporting. You got to think about reporting in different currencies. You got to make sure that your tracking and your payment options reflect the environment that your cross-border partners are dealing with. Some countries don't have access, for example, as easily to PayPal. So we have to think about other things like Wire and other types of payment mechanisms that help our publishers actually succeed with us and get compensated for their actions. Advertisers are thinking about that. eBay's thinking about it. Other advertisers are thinking about it. As you think about it, as publishers think about it, think about how you can help advertisers who are looking for growth opportunities to expand. Think about how your products and your services can be expanded to somebody across the pond and how we can actually work together to make that happen. So when I talk about expansion, I think about a couple different things. I think about behavior. A lot of advertisers are thinking about not only just presenting tools in an interface. So there's a lot of ways to present information to our publishers. There's showing them a graph on your homepage of your network site, or there's giving them APIs, giving them reporting APIs where they can actually look at their own views. This is a trend that I'm seeing more and more because we, as an advertiser, are starting to think about our own data in a way that's much more sophisticated. So we have to make sure that our publishers get access to that sophistication. And one of the things I know that we've been focusing on quite a bit is customer behavior. We think about our buyers, what gets them to come to eBay first, what gets them to buy a little bit more, and what gets them to buy a lot. And when I think about what that means to our publisher community, it means that there's a lot of work up front that has to happen, A, to identify those customers, to be able to figure out what to serve, what types of ads to serve to those customers, and then be able to help us, in many ways, pre-sell that consumer when they get to our site so that we can convert that customer. Very difficult to do. I don't know many advertisers that are very successful at doing that, and I think that this is going to be a big trend. This is going to be where partnership really comes into play. It's going to require some very, very different ways of operating. But the fundamental behavioral change is you can no longer just send advertisers traffic. You have to think about a lot more the types of traffic you send, and you have to think about how you can work together to achieve each other's goals. So when I think about the tools that are at your fingertips today, we've got, I've probably rarely have seen some of the types of database work that we have at a place like eBay elsewhere, but I'm sure that there's many, many places that are have warehouses of data stored in their headquarters and other data centers. They're driving a whole bunch of new platforms to help share this information. We're moving from a world of FTP to a world of open data. We're thinking about platforms that are open around service-based architectures that are flexible and agile and not built upon layers and layers of sort of historical architecture. Thinking about tearing down the house and building it up. I'm sure other advertisers are going in that direction. I'm sure you experience that working with other advertisers, that they're moving in that direction. But that's certainly a trend that we see, and that's a trend that we're acting on as well. Our view on reporting is we want to look at reporting as a way to enable very operational type of moves for publishers, help them understand where to target, how to target, when to target. But we also know that reporting these days is much more and better off in the hands of publishers, where they actually look at their own customized views. And in fact, probably the last decade, many, many affiliate networks have spent many, many hours perfecting the perfect report to put in their interface, when in fact, the real answer is probably to provide publishers who are sophisticated to be able to pull in that data any which way they want to look at. So there's a whole bunch of reporting world that's changing. When I think about frequency, I think about all sorts of modes of segmentation. I think about the fact that advertisers are now showing publishers how frequent their customers buy. I remember back when I was working at another affiliate network, when working in the credit card industry, it used to be all about volume. And it used to be get as much volume to the credit card provider as possible. We knew that that was a short-lived world, right? Because you can drive a whole bunch of volume, but if people don't use the credit card, that customer lifetime value goes way down. So people start to think about how do we compensate on action? How do we compensate on usage? And as you go down further the funnel, the action becomes more valuable. This data is becoming data that advertisers are starting to provide to their publishers. They need it. I remember the day when we would ask publishers on behalf of advertisers at a commercial network that I worked at, saying, you got to drive better quality volume. And then the publishers would say, well, we have absolutely no idea how to do that because we can't see any of the data that sits in the credit card company's house. So that world has to change in order for a new type of world to exist. Transparency is really, really important. Categories, think about many, many retailers are out there thinking about their margins, thinking about how they can compete to give more room in commissions to publishers for categories where they have more margin, and be able to drive basic retail strategies. So you see a lot more using data and using compensation strategies to drive strategic growth in different areas. And we as an advertiser are thinking along those lines as well. It's a good focus area. It's a great focus area. As a marketplace, we have to think about where we want to drive volume. And we've got new customers, infrequent customers, and very frequent customers, all very valuable to a place like eBay. And I'm thinking as an analogy for many, many advertisers. But I know advertisers can't make the same amount of money on one category that they can in another. And if they're smart, they're using that data to be able to build a compelling compensation scheme to be able to address growth and make sure that people are focused on the right strategic areas. And lastly, landing pages. So if I think about how publishers can capitalize on these opportunities, it's being able to A/B test landing pages, helping advertisers, helping publishers identify different options to land. and making sure that they're aware of the sort of lift of going from one landing page to another. So one of the things that I'd say from my own experience is really important is really when you build a publisher relationship, you have to provide them with information and content to help them do their job better. So part of that is looking at landing pages, for example, and starting to build out some best type of landing pages for our publishers. So if they're looking for a specific type of action, we can help them find better ways to achieve conversion, because conversion is typically something that's on the advertiser. You hear a lot, and you probably as publishers feel a lot of responsibility from advertisers on being able to convert customers. Personal view on that is that that's really a high expectation. It's a very high expectation if you don't provide any information. If you do provide information, then it becomes a little bit of a different story. Then it becomes a partnership where you're saying, how do we help find the right consumers, send them to the site, and in fact, create a seamless experience for those consumers so that they can convert at a much better rate. It's not wholly dependent on the advertiser. It's not wholly dependent on the publisher. It's a partnership. Some of the things that are really helping us explore some open waters is tracking. You know, when I think about a most basic affiliate program, to become a network, you need to track, report, and pay. If you can do those three things, you can become an affiliate network. You can't necessarily become a successful affiliate network, but you can certainly become an affiliate network, sort of the ante to play. When I think about some of the things that have happened recently, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. And as a network and as an advertiser, I find that you can't always do everything. You can't do everything yourself. Sometimes you need to partner with other partners, other technologies, to be able to cover the world of opportunity. Some of the opportunities that I think are really exciting for publishers these days include being able to go online, offline, multi-channel. Something very big at eBay that we're focused on, and something that I think every advertiser is starting to think about is how you make that leap. Great news for publishers are those publishers that have been spending years and years sending traffic to retailers that go offline can now get their traffic recognized and compensated for. Secondly, on the mobile side, app tracking is becoming much more prevalent. We're working really hard to make that happen. Not easy to do. It's a different paradigm, but that's what's going to happen. But there are providers out there. There are providers out there that do that today. And companies, advertisers, networks that can't do it on their own are likely to partner with those types of technologies and make that happen. And I think that's a great trend that's going on. And social in particular, thinking about leveraging social networks, publishers' social networks, requires a whole bunch of new nuances to our business. Requires being able to track those transactions when you don't always know the source of traffic coming to those sites. Having great policies in place to make sure that people don't abuse that. And then opening the door to whole new platforms like the Facebooks of the world and the Pinterests of the world, where a lot of our publishers live and are starting to develop their own communities. And making sure that you don't make the mistake as an advertiser of saying, well, I don't want their customer, I want my customer. Making sure that you're working with a partner to say that's our customer. As they come off that site, I want to make sure they've got a great offer in hand and that they come to our site and there's no difference between the two. So one of the things that we're starting to think about is a whole bunch around the areas, in all of these areas, around how we leverage these different channels to create more opportunity. So it's really about getting our publishers on board, making sure that everything is in place to make that experience really good for an advertiser. So some of the challenges I think that I'll be quite frank about being a publisher is that your advertisers are starting to compete with you. And it would be silly of me not to talk about the fact that there are advertisers that are developing their own coupon programs, their own loyalty programs, their own every program. And this is where the not yours, not mine, but ours principle really holds. It's okay for publishers, and it's important that publishers continue to focus on the areas that they add value, because an advertiser can't tackle everything. And in fact, they shouldn't, right? They shouldn't do that. They should be focusing on the things that they do well. Coupon programs started to pop up I'd say probably less than, probably as long as affiliate marketing has been around, we've had advertisers trying to present their own coupons. It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of research out there on why coupon sites are so important. It's because consumers don't actually trust the advertiser themselves that they're going to put out there the best offers. So you got to understand that as an advertiser, that you may not succeed at all these things as well as your partners, but it's okay to try. And it's okay to try to figure out how to work together in those areas and how to divide and conquer. Loyalty programs, the same thing. You know, there's a real danger of advertisers thinking, again, this is my customer. I need to get that customer on. I've got a lifetime value. I've got to keep thinking about how to produce over and over again repeated buys from that customer. When in fact, if you think about it, I don't, as an advertiser, have a whole lot of problem in working with any type of publisher that's going to drive any type of traffic, as long as I pay for the value of that traffic that makes sense. So in an efficient marketplace, your value and your price have to work out. You can't overpay for those types of transactions if, in fact, consumers are your customers, but you can't ignore it, and you have to participate. So one of the big dangers that advertisers do is they say, I don't want to work with this whole class of publishers because, you know, these are our customers. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. But on the other hand, publishers have to think about this and figure out ways to work through this system, or else we're going to have some zero-sum games. And that's obviously the message today is there's no need to have zero-sum games. In fact, we can work with great sites through pilot programs, and we are. We're working with coupon sites. We've worked with loyalty sites in the past. It's not easy all the time. I mean, coupon sites at eBay, you think about you know, a viral coupon going through eBay on a site-wide promotion is not really an easy type of offer to make. It can easily be abused. I know there's ways around it. And on top of that, it could be very, very costly when you think about all the other costs stacked on top of it. But you know what? We got to figure it out. And so do other advertisers. They got to figure it out because they'll be missing out on distribution if they don't. Loyalty programs, same thing. There's no reason to necessarily ignore an entire class of publishers just because you want to own a customer. You got to share the customer. So one of the things we do, and we're starting to do a whole lot more, is really engage with our partners on testing. We've done a whole bunch of different types of tests. We've been thinking about, I'll talk to you a little bit more about incrementality, but we've been doing tests around incremental sales, optimization, thinking through how we can create some new models of monetization for our publishers. And the best way to do that, and something I think eBay hasn't done very well over the years, but is starting to do a whole lot better, is to engage our publishers in a very sort of one-to-one basis and get their feedback very early and help us. So when you're thinking about choosing to work for an advertiser, to work for a network, I think it's really important to make sure your crew, your team, the team that's supporting you, is of high quality. I mean, one of the things I think eBay's done an amazing job of, and I take no credit for it because I've only been there a little over a year, is the fact that quality has been sort of at the very top of the list. Everything from network quality to value. And so when I think about sort of the values you want to look for in an advertiser, in a network, maybe in both, I sort of think about three things. I think about value, communication, and openness. And when we think about this, and I'll sort of say I'm sure this is true of all good advertisers, it's all about making sure you are making sure you're making the best possible use of your publisher's time. The value and the reward, the time they put in equals commensurate with the reward they get out. So as you're thinking about things like compensation and promotions, you got to think about how much time goes into your partner's preparation. Something that gets often overlooked, and something where I think, you know, if you're a good advertiser, you spend a lot more time on. You make a lot better friends that way. Area to help drive value is, again, not asking publishers just to do things without giving them the proper tools to do things. Now, that doesn't mean that having everything out of the box is possible. Often it takes conversations and understanding of what drives a publisher. And in fact, when I think about all the different types of publishers we work with, it's impossible to solve every problem. So we got to solve big problems, and we got to think about common denominators of issues that publishers have to solve. But we certainly should be giving our publishers guidance on what works, and that's about value. It's about the value of our account management team and advertiser account management teams. If they're not reaching out or providing data through their blogs, through their communications, they're not providing value to you. You should be looking for that. And I feel like it's really important that you know that you're at a place, an advertiser, a network in particular, where it's a secure place to do business. We just do not tolerate bad behavior at a place like eBay, and no good advertiser does. So if you're looking for a quick buck and you're looking for a way to make money without a lot of rules, you're going to have to wipe a lot of advertisers off your list because people are not interested in that anymore. I think people with data and transparency have been able to figure out we can do a whole lot better as a community. We feel that same way, and in turn, we have to make sure that the commissions that you earn don't get stolen by other affiliates and that the policies are fair, because that's the right way to do it. Secondly, I think communication is absolutely in the cornerstone of looking for a great partner. We are going through a whole bunch of change, and one of the, since I've been on board and since we've been working as a relatively new team at eBay, we've really made a commitment to being open and honest about practically everything we do. In fact, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes we announce things before everything is always figured out, every last detail, because we want to have a conversation with publishers and understand their feedback. You know, there's a lot of risk with that. There's a lot of risk with that, but I think in the long run, it's a great way to be, and it's the sort of the model of the future, is being open and being transparent. And I think that we're finding success. I hope other advertisers are looking at this and saying, boy, you don't have to hide from your publishers. You need to get to know them better and understand their concerns, because these are really smart people. These are probably the industry leaders. I mean, I've stuck in this industry roughly 9 years now. It's because I love being surrounded by people who are smarter than me and understand that next game. And I think collaboration and communication have to come together with advertisers, and they have to understand that at the executive level. I find one of the things I always find is that affiliate is often the most valuable channel. Not every executive understands why, and not every executive understands what the drivers are. So not only communicating with your publishers, but making sure that those publishers have access to your executives and that our executives understand exactly how your publishers drive traffic. One of the things we do, and I think a lot of good advertisers make a practice of, is surveying their publishers. We're trying to find, that in fact are part of the tools that we have developed to help keep an ongoing dialogue with our publishers, so that when publishers talk to us through our forum or through emails that we send, they have an opportunity to give us feedback, and we constantly learn. And going part and parcel with communication, obviously, is openness. We strive, and we're not there yet. We know where we have to go. We see the buoy. It's around APIs. We don't do it for everything yet, but we will. It's something we have to do. Every good advertiser is going to have to provide APIs. We're not going to use it as just a common term. We're going to be very specific about what kind of APIs we want to provide. But over time, that's important. That's where the world is going. So we have to be able to open up the engine for our publishers and let them link in. It's just not going to go any other way. We know that. And we have to be thinking about just forward-thinking products. We have to be thinking about what's the next type of attribution we need to credit for publishers. We're contemplating, we're looking at everything, right? We're thinking about how do we create new monetization for our publishers in a marketplace. We're not selling, we're not a retailer. We don't sell a specific good, we sell a marketplace. So we got to think about, like, what keeps that marketplace thriving? Well, if it's sellers, maybe we've got to find a way to compensate publishers on driving sellers, because that's a really virtuous cycle for us. If it's categories, got to find a way to do that. And we're helping our publishers look at what's important to us and hopefully find those that see that same importance in their world. And it goes without saying, and I'll speak to those that work in our world. I think there's a lot of publishers that work in a lot of different sectors. Brands are important. Brands help. They create a lot of trust with the consumer. They create a lot of trust with the publisher, and those have to be equal, and they have to sort of be commensurate. Now, you can't judge a publisher by their cover. You can't look at a name and say, I don't like that name, I don't want to work with that publisher. You can't do that. You have to look at the sort of the content of a publisher and understand what's really important. But understanding brands and thinking about things like sub-affiliate networks. So, like, we're very happy to work with networks that have sub-affiliates as long as they understand our rules of the game. So when I think about our policies, they have to be really strong, because we want to tap into networks that help us extend our reach. So I don't want to be so dictatorial to say we're not going to work with this or we're not going to work with that. Sub-affiliates is one of those areas where I think there's a huge opportunity, but you have to be picking the right partners to make sure people are carrying through your policies on who they let in their networks and how we actually present the brand. Just a good example of how that works and other third parties. So when I think about extending the corny analogy of sailing, I think about how you adjust your sails and are able to adjust to changing environments. And one thing I always give advice to, even to my own team, is the only way you can control your own destiny is to plan, right? And so in order to do that, you never know if your plan works, but you certainly, without a plan, you're going to be lost at sea, right? With a plan and targets and being able to tell your publishers, this is how the business wants to grow. Subject to change, but this is how the business wants to grow. Here's our targets. Here's our goals. Here's a way for you to feel good about helping us drive those goals. Here's our alignment around those goals. And if you can't do it or don't want to do it, we understand. You've got other opportunities. And we have to be willing, as an advertiser, to understand that people will walk away if the goals don't line up. But boy, isn't it much better to be up front and say, this is what we're striving for? Hope that your relationships are good enough that they can weather maybe that storm, or maybe it's the next executive that changes their mind and things go back a different way. You got to have a plan. And so first step is to have a plan. And then you need to be able to accommodate a whole bunch of different advertiser models. There's a whole bunch of models coming out there today. eBay likes to take advantage of really sophisticated modeling. They like to think about how they can expand their business without necessarily marketing to people they don't have to market to. Look, at the end of the day, sometimes you can overcomplicate things, right? Sometimes you can make things so sophisticated that it doesn't make sense to work with people. But it does make sense for you, for our publishers out there, for those that are looking at advertisers, to understand that advertisers are thinking about these things very carefully. You're going to find that some advertisers take it to the extreme. They're going to take it to the extreme and make it so hard to work with you, so hard to optimize that you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to adjust to that. Those advertisers are going to either have to come back and say we've overcomplicated it, or they're going to lose their publishers. We're in the same boat. And we're going through changes now which are actually meant to simplify and to clarify what's important to us. Incrementality is a term I don't love to use. It's kind of a very subjective term to an advertiser. It creates a lot of controversy. I even contemplated not talking about it today, but I think it's really important to put the elephant in the room that that's a model that advertisers are going to. I hear it all the time. Attribution, incrementality. It's happening at eBay. It's happening everywhere. Be prepared. Adjust your sales. Understand what goals are important to your advertiser. Make decisions. Figure out if you want to play or not. But I also think that it's incumbent on the advertiser as they think about these models to create opportunities for their publishers. And I talked about a couple different ones with you already, thinking about how we grow our seller community. Something that isn't often done. You don't hear much about that in the affiliate world. There aren't many marketplaces out there. Well, maybe there's a really untapped opportunity. Maybe that helps enhance an opportunity that felt like it was taken away from you. So we've got to think about ways to accommodate our publishers and open up opportunities. And hybrid landing pages is another good example of something that we're doing, testing a whole bunch at eBay. I'm sure a lot of advertisers are starting to say there's different places to land publishers, consumers, and there's different experiences that'll help our publishers increase their conversion rates so that they get paid more and help make it virtuous for the advertiser as well. I think I've probably beat many dead horses today. But if you had to walk away with anything and you had to think about what's important to advertisers today and networks today, it's creating a great customer experience. Those that don't do it, you think about the behemoths out there. You think about the competition out there. I mean, we're up there. We've got all sorts of really, really powerful, great companies out there eBay's competing against and cooperating with. You know, some of our partners are our competitors and vice versa. This is the world we live in, and we're quite comfortable navigating that landscape. But it's everybody who's focused on the customer is going to win. People who are not focused on the customer are not. I think you'll know by getting to know me and getting to know my team that we believe in transparency. We may not be the same old eBay that we were before. We're certainly hoping to change any reputation that says we're not. We're willing to go out on a limb. We're willing to sort of try things that we haven't done before because we know that it's important, and we're not going to win unless we do. So being transparent is really important driving mutually beneficial relationships are really important. And we have to give our publishers tools to succeed. You may come right back to me and say, well, eBay doesn't today. We will. We will. We're listening. It's something I think that's happening across the industry. You're going to find a lot of your advertisers are listening a whole lot more because they see it. They see where programs succeed, and they make those adjustments if they're good advertisers. And I think it's really about a collective use of leveraging tools. Data is no longer data. It's information. And if people don't start to harness the power of the data they have, it's just going to sit in a bunch of servers in a large air-conditioned room, and it's going to go nowhere. So we got to start sharing that information a whole lot with our publishers and making sure that people understand sort of where our consumer is. Help us find those consumers anywhere, anytime, anyhow, across any geography, and help bring them to places like eBay and other retailers that help our consumers meet their value propositions. So that's my formal end for today. I'm going to leave the microphone open in case anybody has any questions. You can either walk right up to the microphone, or you can yell out your question, and I'll repeat it so that it gets captured on video. But don't let that scare you. But thank you very much. I want to say officially, thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate your attendance, and I'm hoping a couple people out there have some good questions. Thank you. Yeah. OK, we got to have a question. Unless I've been so abundantly clear, no questions. OK, I'll count. I'll give 5. Oh, Brooke has a question. Brooke, could you, do you mind?
Forgive me if this question is out of line. I don't think it will be. What advertisers, aside from eBay and aside from like the software as a service platforms that you mentioned, have you had your eye on recently?
Sure, that's a great question. So, well, my general philosophy is and I've spent a number of years at Google and other large companies. I think something I've learned in my own life is to really not spend too much time looking around you and focus on what you do well. But you can't help but think that we're in a marketplace, and we've got every type of, there's a number of business models. We've got Google moving into the world that we live in through commerce. We've got Amazon actually in our neck of the woods. We're based in Seattle now, that obviously competes very directly with us. And we have other retailers that are starting to build out their own marketplaces. So I think everybody's seeing the opportunity of being a marketplace, and everybody's using their great skills as being a retailer. And I think anybody that resembles those and looking for customers is somebody that we should be very aware of, and we should be thinking through how we assert our value proposition, because it's kind of a land grab right now. So I would say, the usual suspects I think are pretty sort of the obvious one: the Googles, the Amazons, other retailers. But at the same time, we don't compete with retailers. And this is the one thing that I feel really differentiates us, is we're a marketplace. So retailer models, marketplaces, those that are trying to become a lot like us, I mean, those are things that we should just kind of understand a whole lot more. But one of the big real differentiators with an eBay, probably anywhere else, is that we're simply a platform. We help commerce come together, and we help try to make that commerce as easy as possible. So it changes a little bit of the competitive perspective. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? OK, well, maybe we're just hungry. And I don't want to hold you back from lunch, but I really appreciate you coming out. And I'll be around for the rest of the day. If you got any questions, feel free to come grab me. Thanks very much.